Hi, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where in the world you are today. My name is Amanda, and I want to welcome you to today's Tech Strong Learning Experience. We also want to thank you for joining us today for today's live program. And just a few reminders before we get started. We've got quite a panel today, and it's going to be a great topic. This session is being recorded and will be available on demand afterwards. We will send you a link to your inbox after we conclude today's live session. We invite you to join us in the chat as well. If you have any questions for our speakers and on the topic, feel free to use the Q&A panel. You can find this on the right side of your screen. We also have some great handouts available that can be found in the resources section on your screen. Feel free to download those. Those are yours to keep on today's topics, and a lot of great information, especially with the pulse meter. And without further ado, let's kick off today's topic: modernizing digital banking services, harnessing cloud technology. And Mitch Ashley is going to be moderating today. And Mitch, do you want to go ahead and start introductions with you, and then we'll go around?
Absolutely. Great topic. I started my career in banking, and think about the changes happened over that period of time, some pretty substantial changes. Great topic to be talking about. And we talk about modernizing applications and digital transformation. And, none has gone through more than, I would say, maybe even the financial services and banking world. So we're going to dive into that. We did some research together with Hexaware and AWS and put that in a document that's available in the handout section. So we'll pop up some charts here and there. This is not a slide presentation, but we'll be sharing some data with you from that research, and some of our conversation is built around that as well. So we'll be kind of doing some factual data stuff and some here's what we think that means and what we're seeing in market and experiences that we've had. So my name is Mitch Ashley. I am Chief Technology Advisor and Analyst with Futurum Group and CTO with the Tech Strong Group, who puts on this platform, this event, Tech Strong Learning. And I'm very pleased to be joined by folks from both Hexaware and from AWS. Peter, you want to kick things off and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself as well as Hexaware, hand off to your colleague, and then we can have Carter from AWS jump in. Peter, how about you?
Yes, for sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Peter Jan van der Ven, or PJ in short, working for Hexaware. Hexaware is a global technology and business process outsourcing company with 30,000 people across the globe, 1.5 billion revenue, and we build, we run, we optimize, and we transform our clients' businesses using technology. Specifically, I work for the department is called Digital and Software, where we help our clients bringing the ultimate customer experience from digital perspective with their customer journeys, composable architectures, and making sure that we make those digital native customers happy. I'm responsible for the business development for digital and software in EMEA and APAC. And also have a role as global VP of digital banking, and making sure that we bring a compelling value proposition in digital banking to our customers.
Welcome. And your colleague, Ike?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mitch and Peter Jan. My name is Ike Pan, a colleague of Peter Jan, coming from the same division, digital and software service line of Hexaware. My role within the division is Chief Technology Officer. I'm responsible for overall product engineering practices, architecture competency, as well as technology thought leadership development across EMEA and APAC region. Really happy to join this call.
Fantastic. Good to be talking with you both. And of course, we're joined by Carter. Carter, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do at AWS?
Yes, and hello, everybody. My name is Carter All. I am part of the Financial Services and Insurance Center of Excellence at AWS with a focus on banking and payments. And the primary function of our team is to understand market demands, in my case, in both banking and payments, then to take those demands and align with partners. Partners are an essential part of our growth at AWS. align with partners on particular solutions, and then develop those solutions with the partners. So it could be a brand new partner, or it could be an existing partner. It's all about accelerating that journey and innovating faster. So great to be with you all today. I've been with AWS about 3.5 years.
Fantastic. And I imagine in banking, even a bit longer than that.
Yes.
Very
Yes.
good. Very good. So I mentioned some research that we did. This is a collaborative effort between TechStrong Research and Hexaware and AWS. And what we do is we talk to our community of readers and viewers and participants in events like this across DevOps.com and Security Boulevard and TechStrong TV, Cloud Native Now, TechStrong AI, all of our different sites that we collect data and ask people to give us their feedback. And we're focusing on this area of modernizing kind of digital banking and services, and what are some of the emphasis of that. So I'd like to share some of that data with folks, and then we'll jump right into this. By the way, this document, as I mentioned, is available in the handouts. Everybody will get a copy of this later when we send out the link to the recording. So this is what we're referring to. One of the first questions that we asked were what the primary business drivers were around your organization. You know, if you're on the delivery end of banking, modernizing to digital banking services. Customer experience, customer journey comes up as number one, along with, of course, increasing operational efficiencies when we think about modernizing. And then a number of the other factors falling kind of below that, reducing cost, improving security and risk management, et cetera. But clearly jumping up at the top is both how we operationally deliver and also what that customer journey is about. And of course, it's not walking into a bank or up to a teller machine any longer. We're talking about digital experiences. So Peter, love to have you kick us off and share your thoughts and reactions, both to kind of what we saw from the data, but also your experience of what's happening in the market.
Yeah, thank Mitch. Indeed, if you look at the data, on top of it is customer experience. Number 2 and 3 are connected to cost, saving costs. Of course, if you look in general, what does digital bring, and specifically also in digital banking, it is always about customer experience. That's the first thing what digital does. It increases customer experience. It lowers operational costs. Digital will bring, specifically in digital banking, self-servicing capabilities to customers that used to go to a branch, or that used to go for specific services to a branch, and now it's all at the fingertip of the app or the web app. So customer experience, for sure, it's not surprising that is on top, and that's also definitely one of the benefits that we see. Secondly, operational costs go down, and that's always the second, I think, benefit from digital. You automate processes. Customers that do self-service don't need to go to a branch, which leads to a lot of operational efficiency in the end. And it's not just for customers. And the great thing that you don't see here is also employee experience. So also employees are very happy within the bank if they get their processes automated, if they have the single 360 overview. We saw that it all started at the customer side, but we also see a lot of digitization now. The same level of customer experience that is expected within the bank, actually, instead of just outside the bank. And that's one that you don't specifically see here. It might be connected to that customer experience side too. So I think these are definitely things that we recognize. We always say there is a third one that makes it really happy when you digitize and when you automate, and that's a regulator, right? Automated processes are auditable. You see it, I think, a little bit down in the list. Regulators, risk departments are also really happy with the auditability of automated processes.
And Peter, yeah, Peter, those are great points, and I look forward to digging into the customer experience piece and maybe a later topic on this call. But the one thing that we find is that finance leaders face a number of related issues that inhibit process and operational improvement. There are many. There's like over-reliance on manual spreadsheet-based processes, which you probably can all relate to. Governance and controls are often more reactive than proactive. We find that insufficient access to granular data is just not sufficient. Insufficient access to granular data to make timely decisions, which are so important in our fast-moving environment today. And then I'd say also, lastly, the lack of agility needed to make changing regulatory and compliance reporting needs.
Yeah, on top of that, it's also coping with faster change of the market. So when you roll out certain banking proposition or propositions to the market, as in the digital space, is we often come up with a strategy of continuous validation, tracking through data strategy, data analytics, etc., knowing what the customers are looking for, and quickly adopt those changes when things are not working from customer experience perspective or from quality of the service you deliver. And that comes also with the stability of your backbone systems, etc. The time to market, the time of reaction gets really drastically reduced to a very small time fashion, allowing you to really implement what we call the modernized, the agile approach of delivering in small iterations embedded into what is seen to be very classic domain, that is banking financial services, drastically changing. And those cost saving is very invisible when it comes to the digital experience and also the overall enablement.
It's interesting, and also when we talk about customer experience, digital experience, it's the experience today, but also where that is going next, right? We rely on our cell phones heavily, my smartphones, for interacting with services like banking, probably much more than we did maybe 5 years ago. We're just learning to trust our browsers to do that, and now we do that. But who knows what the device is tomorrow or what interfaces we may be having. I'm also curious, while we're talking about that customer experience, part of that is new products and services. You see companies introducing, will identify duplicates of things you've subscribed to in a consumer kind of setting, or maybe a paycheck advancement as part of your banking service, things like that. So we're really changing what the products are that are part of that customer journey as well. Anyone have some thoughts, comments on that? It's not just digitizing it. Peter, comment?
Yeah. Those for sure. I think we see a lot of new features popping up. And what we always say, these things are banks compete with each other in terms of bringing the best digital services out there. But banks also compete with all, let's say, the big techs out there, because they also provide this great customer experience for free. And that also makes that the general consumer demand for digital also rapidly goes up. And we call this experience relativity, and that also continuously pushes the bar for banks too. If I step out of an Uber in Amsterdam, just before I step out, it will say to me, "Watch out! There is a bicycle lane next to you." These kind of real-time, immediate help that you experience in your daily life, and these type of services you're also gonna expect from your bank. One of the neobanks in the Netherlands, Bunk, for instance, when I'm using it because I have a lot of banking accounts, of course, to making sure that I can always compare these things. But if I land in a new country, it will always give me a few financial tips, like this is the exchange rate, these cards you can use, tipping is normal, and this is the normal rate for tipping. These kind of services you see continuously being developed, and it's actually pushed by consumer demand, driven by, I think, the big tech that continuously raises the bar in terms of digital servicing.
Very good. Let's take this, the topic of customer journey, customer experience, maybe a little bit deeper. Look at some more data around that topic. For example, going on to one of the next questions we asked around this was, what are the customer-related factors that influence your decisions on modernizing digital banking services? So things like real-time transaction processing and seamless integration of other fintech services. So it isn't like here's product A, B, and C. It's how these things work together. And of course, personalizing the banking experience too. So customizing it or personalizing that to the customer and their experiences in the product and services that they're using as part of your offerings to them. Peter, I'd love have you jump in And also, EK, from a technical perspective, if you want to discuss some of that as well, what does it take to do these things? But if you want to launch us off, PJ.
Yeah, I think it kind of connects what I was just saying. These are indeed customer demand driven factors that push also banks into modernizing their digital banking services. So it is driven by the need for real time. That's also what you see here, the need for real time payments. But there is a second factor there too. These things are also driven by regulators, for instance. So regulators are imposing banks to adopt to all of those instant payment schemes. And this is also, again, pushed by customer demand, but also accelerated by the regulator. And actually, the second point that you see here, the desire for seamless integration with other financial services, is the same thing. It's for sure also driven by customer demands, but also here you see a push from regulators for open banking, or next step, even open finance, making sure that data that is connected to a customer is also exposed for other parties to use, which opens the door for all kind of new services, because there's financial data available, there's personalized data available. So these are for sure, as it says also here in the data, customer driven, but again accelerated also by regulators.
Yeah, from the technology ecosystem perspective, if you look at the landscape, once I was seeing a really big map out of the existing vendors who offers work within the banking domain and also financial services and fintech beyond. There are many vendors, and what is interesting these days is no longer as if you're going to create a challenging propositions. It's no longer necessary to create everything from scratch and home build by yourself and by your teams. And those focus can shift into creating a smart architecture roadmap by leveraging what is solid in the market, by stitching the capabilities together. Integration becomes the key instead of everything custom built or customized, leveraging from the platforms. But rather than looking from the capabilities each of the vendors, the ecosystem could already bring, so that banks and financial services entities can focus on the aspects as Peter described, creating the personalized experiences. So then move back to the previous topic about the cost and where you invest is precisely on the personalized experiences that you want to do. But those personalized experiences lies on the power of data, lies on a proper API strategy and the integration architecture plan as well underneath. So, and those are the areas you need to focus on the efforts. And do not reinvent the wheel while there's a certain capability you could leverage. And taking a common keywords, these or buzzwords that these days people talk a lot about, the composable architecture, precisely lies on the value of composability instead of building from scratch or leveraging just one system. So looking that from that aspect, the whole ecosystem is changing, and also the architecture strategy, the overall technology strategy is also changing from the very classical way into a very adaptive way.
Carter, I'm guessing you might have some views on that as well, too, given your kind of dual role in banking as well as the technology side.
The one thing that we actually see in our interaction with customers, banking customers, and not just the large ones, but the mid-tier and the smaller ones as well, is that culture seems to be the biggest impediment. And culture, the way we look at culture is across people, processes, the organization itself, and change management. So I think culturally you have to have the right support in place, not only for the technology, but to acknowledge the power of data, to make sure that you're able to use the data and the analytics to affect the right change. So that's kind of ground zero, the way we see it, and also having the right security and measures in place. Security is, if you know, AWS is really at the core of what we do. It's providing the right security and compliance in everything we do. So that's also something that is essential to affecting change and modernizing in the right way.
Great, very good. Let's kind of take this a step further. looking at what some of the challenges our organizations face in modernizing digital banking applications. The legacy applications, legacy systems, of course, unless you're fortunate enough to be a greenfield, you always have existing systems to deal with, financial budget constraints, things like that. Lack of skilled personnel in modernizing and in the cloud, of course, as you're adopting new things, both how to modernize as well as adopting new technologies, et cetera. Security we talked about comes up again, regulatory and compliance, in this new environment, et cetera. There's a lot of factors to consider. Carter, I'd love to have you jump in and talk a little bit about how some of these fit together and thinking about how you modernize banking applications and systems, maybe what some of the strategies are.
Sure. And assembling the right team is absolutely critical. And the right team, of course, consists of those with the technical chops. I would also say that it's really important to have people with the right business sense and to align, the business, the most imperative business needs to kind of the technical aspirations and, of course, the modernization. So the primary benefits of modernization, which, everybody may know, quality is a big one, having the right predictability, the reduction of risk, having the right flexibility, and of course, all the benefits around efficiency. We also like to talk about data at the very core, which I know has come up a few times on this call as well. And we believe that the data is any organization's differentiator. So that's really important to acknowledge. I mentioned, culture earlier with the earlier question, and then the power of analytics. So what can analytics do for, a bank? It's helping. The analytics help to determine the minimally viable product. They help with customer acquisition, retention, and churn, which is on the minds of course of every bank. They help to manage, attached services, and they certainly help to address segmentation. And then also, and so important now, particularly for the customer experience, is providing the right level of transparency, which is very important.
Interesting. PJ, anyone want to jump in? You're on mute there, it looks like.
I'm sorry, I should be back again. No, if I look at the list on top here, you see legacy systems integration. And we are talking already for years about these spaghetti architectures. And unfortunately, we still see new spaghetti architectures being created by banks that think that they are too different from the rest. You touched it already a little bit also earlier. We always tell to our customers to not try to reinvent the wheel. So try to leverage as much as possible product vendors out there for those pieces in your architecture that are proven or that are common. We do research periodically ourselves, and we see that if you look at the functionalities that digital banks bring to their customers, about 80% of it globally it's common. It's login. It's the dashboard where you can do payments, where you can do your cards management. There's a lot of those features are similar, and you don't want to innovate on that piece, right? You want to innovate on the real differentiating features. But unfortunately, we still see also parties that try to build everything themselves, even the most basic things that are out there already by very modern platforms out there. And then we always say try to leverage that as much as possible. And the second thing that we also see here, also connected to the legacy piece, that the whole core layer is still quite old in many banks. Everybody started in the front layers, modernizing, making sure that first feel of digital customer experience is there. But we always say that to be truly digital, you need to be digital on all your architectural layers, including the core layer too. But we see that many bank CIOs try to push the core banking replacement or modernization forward, which logically, because it's very, very, very challenging. But in the end, it's inevitable also in terms of cost, in terms of risk, in terms of regulatory compliance, that you also need to modernize on that layer. But I'm pretty sure that Yike can also add a little bit from technical perspective.
Yeah, certainly. And one of the aspects to look into is also just like any other modernization projects and trends from the domain agnostic perspective. And core is core. And if you look at those core systems, typically in the past, there were a lot of dependencies rely on building even business logic in the core. And these days, when it comes to what we call the digital modernization, is actually leveraging and treating the core as a system of records, right? There will be still a thinner layer of business logic sitting in, but it lies a lot more in the middle layer when it comes to orchestrating different systems together, and really brings up to the middle layer of what we call the integration orchestration layer, the business logic, instead of relying on the core. And the benefit is it gives you the chance to replace the core if you are not 100% happy of what the core can offer, or it is being kind of already in the plan for retirement, or you want to add other business capabilities through different platforms. So that brings a total flexibility from technology enablement instead of relying on one system or a couple of systems to kind of offer what you could offer, and also brings the agility for change so that you can plan instead of have all one-off operations that cost downtime to your whole business, where you could just slice it up and then plan it over the iterations of the course of the time, so that this doesn't impact your business continuity, and while already introducing the digital parts of the experiences and leveraging the value of the data already. So it doesn't disrupt your digital innovation, but while you could also in small iterations and plan the proper modernization of your core. But the key is a right architecture, principles, and also patterns to apply, and where to leverage bring the business logic to the different layers, so that you isolate the core, then you could replace or renew, depends the strategy you apply.
You know, UK, thinking about what you're talking about, the right architecture and patterns and ways to do this, kind of core versus other layers of this, and also your comment, PJ, around spaghetti code, come back to monolith applications, things like that. It isn't easy to go from what you're accustomed to working with and building and operating and supporting to let's try a different architecture or do something that can support, you know, multiple multimodal interfaces, whether it's, you know, web or mobile or other kinds of API types of interfaces. Talk about the skill level or the kinds of skills, and how do you acquire that kind of expertise. It's not like you can just go easily assemble a brand new team that has all the things that you need, because a lot of times these folks aren't easy to find or easy to hire necessarily either. PJ, thoughts on that?
For the team and getting the right talent in place. Now that's for sure challenging these days. We are luckily a global company, so it also allows us to make sure that we hunt for a talent globally. And with the remote working these days, it also makes it easier to get talent from different places. And I think that's one of the areas that we have also used to make sure that we have the right talent. That's challenge one. Keeping the talent is a challenge too, and also making sure that we keep the talent and the knowledge and everything up to date is a challenge. But I'm pretty sure, Yike, you run the engineering department in Amsterdam and some other regions, so I'm pretty sure you can also shine your light on the talent challenge.
Yeah, certainly. It's a residual challenge of the market for decades. And on top of that, also requires a specific financial services banking domain knowledge and experience to be able to work in this domain. So that adds an additional layer of the challenge towards the availability of the talents. But in order to scale, that's another problem and a question, as Peter Jan already rightly pointed out. And you cannot just rely on certain individuals or group of subject matter experts, because in order to scale your business and running multiple digital programs, digital banking programs in parallel, you do need to think of building up your internal knowledge tree. And those are not just documentations; those are reusable artifacts that includes right architecture patterns, architecture designs, blueprints, accelerators, which covers majority of the non-functional aspects. Because many of the digital bankings, they go through starting as the phase of what we call the business MVP. That satisfies the regulatory requirements to be as launched in the market as a digital bank. So, and those requirements often came across as a baseline requirements are very identical to each other, yet specific per country, per region, but those other additional flavor adds on top of what is required to be a regulatory compliant and certified as a digital bank. But nevertheless, those parts are the adaptive parts, but the baseline, they are identical to each other. So that means internally you can start building the knowledge base while delivering successfully the programs alongside with your talents that you have internally. And also is a look together within the market, the solid vendors, leveraging again on the services which are already certified, compliant. So don't try to build everything internally, but really looking into which areas you definitely need to build and which part you could leverage from the cloud vendors or from other acceleration software companies, SaaS platforms, so that in combination, you can get your internal talents, which are limited, to focus on exactly the aspect which needs to be absolutely necessary to be built. And that's the way to go. And having a internally shareable blueprints and be maintained by a knowledgeable group, that's also the key for scale.
We also see a strong trend to buy versus build for mid-tier and small-tier banks. And we find that, well, obviously aligning with the right partner, I'm not just talking about a cloud partner, but the right partner to implement a modernization strategy. We find that one of the first things they look at is the talent, which I know has come up on this topic in particular. So having the right talent in place, as well as doing a technology assessment, and then having the right processes in place is very important too. But definitely a strong trend to the buy versus build, as banks simply just don't have the funding and the expertise in many cases to assemble the right team to do it themselves.
Oh, very good points. Absolutely. Carter, why don't we take a look at kind of some of the trends, future trends, technology-wise. We did ask our audience, what types of, what are some of the future trends that we foresee kind of happening, impacting how we create, develop digital banking applications. Of course, we can't avoid the AI topic. We did pretty well of not mentioning it up to this point. Usually it comes up pretty quick, but we've been pretty disciplined in that respect. AI, machine learning, generative AI, obviously are key trends. Everyone's talking about it, wondering how do we leverage that, and also how do we learn what we need to learn as quickly as we can, so we don't go down rabbit holes trying to implement that. But of course, cloud technology and cloud strategies as well. We also, if I can, I'd like to fold in a question that one of our audience members asked related to this while we're on this topic. Paul asked, what are the benefits of low-touch automation and risks around PII management when using AI and cloud technology? So back to our regulatory and the security and risk management, that's always a thread that's going through all of this. So if you want to comment, Carter, some of your thoughts around the technology trends.
Sure. And there continues to be a lot of chatter and speculation around Gen AI, as I'm sure everybody is not surprised to hear. This spend is very heavy, and banks are looking for an ROI, particularly the larger banks. But I think generative AI and machine learning more generally hold great promise for finance teams. I think it's important to recognize that the technology is still in its early days, which is probably obvious. And finance leaders will find different ways to use it to deliver business value. But today, they can start with relatively simple and low risk use cases. So we look at this in waves. You're probably asking the question, what can we do now? You know, everyone is speculating about the future, but how can we use generative AI right now? So we feel that finance teams are currently using generative AI to augment existing processes by creating text and conducting research. Some of the sample use cases, which you might be able to relate to, are like AI assistants to interact with large data sources to summarize data and generate narratives. That's one. Second one is data anomaly detection and root cause analysis. That's a pretty strong second one. And then, gosh, there are so many. I'd say a third one is probably the analysis of one-off data sets. Or discrete internal data sets like costs and expenses. These are all things, all use cases that you can take advantage of now. Now, if you're looking to the future, which some of us certainly are, if you look, 5 years down the road, we're looking at generative AI co-pilots. They'll work alongside finance professionals to transform core processes or reinvent business partnering and mitigate risks. And if you're really looking to the future, like some of us are, there's like generative, you're looking maybe 10 years down the road or more, you have generative AI applications embedded in data pipelines and workflows to drive operational efficiency and pricing, where we started this call today. So some really interesting waves. But again, everyone's really focused, particularly mid-tier banks and smaller banks, on what can we do now? How can we realize improvement with the use of generative AI now?
Interesting.
Yeah,
PJ, UK,
maybe
jump in.
Yeah, maybe add on top. Generative AI as model, it has capability. I mean, but without data, which is specifically tailored for the banks or customers or any other aspects, it remains not contextualized. So in order to get to the best user, you still need a precise data to feed into the information and also the purpose of what you want to get as the outcome. So it has capability as a sort of a automated human, but if you don't give the human proper knowledge and context, you just get a very generic answers. So the context is very important, but in the highly regulated environment, such as banking, healthcare, you name them, the constraints, the guardrails are also important. A company like AWS and many other players in the active participation in the generative AI community, these aspects become more and more important. So it's a setting up the guardrails and reduce the amount of hallucination in terms of the responses produced by generative AI models. It is a key aspect currently the big companies are looking into, the companies who enables the power of generative AI. So that's is a trend, inherent trend that will move forward, though companies are not still hesitating to take use of it. In many circumstances, it's being already applicable. I think it's a aspects we need to jointly work together, not as a ignoring or avoiding, because otherwise it will not move forward as it has a lot of power. So cautiously adopting to a constrained business case is always and often our recommendation for highly regulated domains like bank. But certainly is an aspect you need to pay attention on because it's becoming powerful. And on the other hand, also the constraint, the policies, and the guardrails are also being set in place. And we the better to and must take the use of those toolings and the enablement in order to get the best outcome.
Great points.
Yeah, it is all about finding the right balance here too, and it is also about what will regulators allow. We had an interesting case of a bank in the Netherlands also that was using AI models to do their AML, and they could actually prove that the outcome of this process was better than other technologies, but the AI process is not auditable. So you cannot, it's kind of a black box. So you cannot really show what you did. So then that proof is not there. The regulators don't really like that. So that also leaded to some lawsuits, actually. But in the end, technology here won that one. So because you could show that you actually do a better job using AI, that was, let's say, superseding the non-auditability in detail. And I think this is also why you need also regulators to be open to these type of technology, because I think everybody understands that the use cases are endless, specifically in financial services. And that's also what we also say to our customers, and where we help our customers is, start experimenting. You see a lot of reluctancy to do this, because also, you see it here also because of the questions, privacy, all these kind of constraints are there. But you can always start small scale experimenting, find out what do customers want, how do regulators react, is technology good enough or not. Start small scale and scale up when you see that you are successful. Just as you do with other prototypes or other new innovations too. And that process you can also use at AI, and that's also what we are doing with our customers.
Absolutely. The non-deterministic nature of generative AI and auditing it seems a little bit of an issue there that you're pointing out.
Makes it hard. Yes.
Good point. Let's go to another question that we wanted to talk about also was, what specific knowledge and experience do you consider critical in a partner when building modern digital applications? Things like, we talked about strong skills in developing banking applications, integrating third-party resources, data analytics, cloud native technologies. All of them really kind of fall high on the importance list. Thank you very much for popping that up there. Love to, Peter, to have you kind of jump in here and talk a little bit more about that in terms of partners.
All right, we're looking at the trends slide, by the way. But so that's I think the wrong graph.
Oh yeah, I did come up the wrong one. Let me bring that up for you. I've got it here.
But yes,
there we go.
In terms of working with partners, right? If you see here the number one, expertise and experience. If we go to a bank, first question is always, where did you do it before? And this is also how we work with partners. Of course, references are so extremely key. We are, you said it earlier, Rainer, a highly regulated, specific environment in terms of banking, with specific requirements in terms of technology, but also in terms of regulation. And of course, I said there was a lot of commonalities between banks, but specifically on regulation, there's always specific domain knowledge, specific local and even regional knowledge important. So those are definitely factors that we also look into, and also what other partners request from us. The experience that you can actually show that you did it before. And of course, there are always new situations, with the specific domain expertise, understanding the regulatory environment in a specific region is so extremely key in the area that we are working in here.
Very good. EK, anything you want to jump in on this too?
And certainly is also we work with the partners that we know, the technology partners that we leverage their capabilities are maintainable, sustainable, but also extensible, right? It is not a partner who came up with the idea, launch certain toolings, and then tomorrow we couldn't find the partner elsewhere if we want to maintain the platform underneath. So we also look after and work very closely, look after their technology roadmap, where we could bring the best to our future customers and also existing customers. We already landed the solution. So in the end, it is building software together, right? And who is responsible and accountable for which part, that comes with the responsibility in terms of delivery. But what is very, very important is having robust platform and the roadmap to cope with the changes that eventually banks will introduce, and the regulatory entities will introduce, or market will require. So that's very crucial when it comes to choosing the partner, but that's built on top of the experience that we work together, right? It's very crucial aspects to look into, and secondly, obviously the non-functional aspects, the scalability, the security, the compliance, and the regulatory requirements that covers, as that we can repetitively delivering those experiences across the different banks and different entities within the region, but also across the different countries. That will also accelerate our work when it comes to creating a new proposition and focusing on the business value delivery. So these two aspects are very important to consider. Yeah.
Great. Carter, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, partner alignment is what I focus on every day, and it's really very important to properly align with the right partner. I know that's obvious, but in terms of depth of experience, in the banking sector, which is one of our fastest growing sub-verticals in FSI, it's a very complex subsector with lots of regulatory demands. So aligning with the right with the right partner that has the depth of experience, and then also the right experience for what you're looking to achieve. Like if it's a particular use case, it's a particular problem area, proper alignment and really digging deep and peeling back the layers to find the right partner is essential. When we look at partners, we certainly do not have a template approach. We look at every partner as very, very unique. And banking is, as I said, is one of the more complex areas. So it requires a lot of technical validation as well as validation of where they're aligned and the successes they've had in the past.
Very good. And to kind of build on that, we also talked about the cloud provider side of it, of course, falling really well directly into your camp, Carter. Security compliance, compliance and both security keep coming up. Cost pricing models, scalability, something that Yike mentioned earlier as well. Support for customers. So a number of factors that go into, isn't just who has the best price or the best technology base to build from. A lot of other concerns to consider. Love to have you comment on that too.
Sure, and many of you likely realize the benefits of cloud, but just to kind of call it out, and security is just absolutely critical. But if you look at things like data loss prevention, these are all benefits of adopting the cloud. Data security, centralized data security, archiving and backing up data, compliance with regulations for storing data, having the right accessibility, scalability, quality. These are all benefits of adopting the cloud, migrating to the cloud, and then also along these lines, having the right data strategy. So we look at a data strategy, and this is very, very high level. It gets much more granular according to your organization, but it's mindset times people times process times technology. That's kind of the way we look at it. But as I said, it gets a lot more detailed. And we also like to talk about the well-architected framework, which many of you may have had exposure to. And what is a well-architected framework? It's really a guide that helps cloud architects design and run cloud applications that are secure, efficient, and resilient. And it's really based on 6 pillars: operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and sustainability. So making sure that those are well qualified is very important when trying to realize the benefits of the cloud.
Very good, very good. Anything? Do you want to jump in, Yike, on this topic as well? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, certainly. Most of the aspects has been covered by Carter, and just want to add one thing we often encounter is availability of the services. We these days, as cloud vendor like AWS, has been every single day rolling out new services and making them available globally, but starting with a certain specific region and then roll out globally, as we always experienced. So it's tremendously important to take the well-established available services for certain specific region, because that also brings the benefits of, again, leveraging the scalability baked by large cloud vendors instead of we as the service providers to kind of cover that specifically. It's no longer the classical way of managing your own prime data center, right? And often in that aspect, some of the banks are still thinking that the classical way of what about disaster recovery and what about the service availability agreements, etc. These days, all these aspects are being covered by the cloud vendor. If you go for that direction, and we still encounter some of the banks are more conservative in the sense that they still kind of sort of, for them, it's hard to interpret the new regulations established by central banks. And it's also our mission working together with cloud vendors like AWS to kind of elaborate the details of the requirements, interpret them, and enable them in the architecture diagrams and proposals, so that the banks are convinced, and also the regulatory entities can sign off on adoption of certain services which is available for a country or region, so that we also safeguard the effort. But most importantly, is we have the big platform behind us to handle all these non-functional aspects, including availability. So that's a very important, and not kind of stepping away immediately saying, oh, let's just go and manage ourselves as we used to do on-prime setup. The landscape is really changing. You really have to think how you can leverage the managed services from a cloud vendor perspective. Yeah.
Very good. PJ, just as a systems integrator, I imagine Hexaware, you're working with all kinds of companies, AWS as a partner, many others as well. So the things that partners bring to table, expertise of their organization and people in it, what their sort of specialties and are, I would imagine all of these things are very recognizable to you as you assemble the teams that you're working with your customers, correct?
No, for sure. And if you actually look at the data, it's quite equally distributed. All of these factors. So there's a lot of things that are important, of course, working with partners. And if I looked at the list, there's one that I missed, and that's actually, I think, also Carter highlighted it earlier. That's also a cultural match. That has nothing to do with technology, nothing to do with capabilities. But we also see that simply partners that have the same type of, let's say, business culture. So I'm not talking, let's say, geocultures. I'm really talking a business culture. They say working together is way easier. We said it earlier. It's a highly regulated environment. These are always very challenging, large projects that never go 100% smooth. And then it's really important that you also have that cultural match with partners. It just leads to better results. And that's not something that you can easily assess, or there is a framework that does it. It's more let's say, an observation that we see that cultural match next to the list that is actually in the data here is definitely something that also really adds to the success of multi-partner projects.
Yeah, and maybe add one more point from my end, also answering the second question I see on the Q&A session. It's related, and how does the personal financial data rights rules enable or restrict the digital banking, especially from the cloud technology perspective? And what we've seen the trend in the cloud vendors like AWS are making great effort to enable this. What I can tell is currently there's an initiative called the Sovereign Cloud offering. Right, it's been enabled in many countries, at least in the European Union, that we see the enablement of sovereign cloud in Germany, for instance, and with exactly the thought behind it of how to enable the storage of organizational data, in this case, bank financial data, personal financial data, only in the local country, yet leveraging the power of the cloud. So there are many initiatives like sovereign cloud offerings is enable and mitigate or reduce the concern of these aspects through the technology enablement by proving this is feasible and also and matching to the regulatory requirements. So, and it's highly encouraged to all the financial institutes, including banks, to really look into what the cloud vendors has been offering and what the system integrators can work together with the cloud vendors to really enable so that you can push your digital innovation and the modernization journey really truly forward. And while coping with all the software aspects and non-functional aspects, including the data rights, because initiative, again, like the sovereign cloud, is really the way to future. And it's not an experiment, right? It is a serious setup that you can leverage as managed services from the cloud vendor.
Very good. We have in our document, we have 5 key takeaways. We don't have time to go through all 5 because we could probably do another hour on each one on them together, but we're gonna pick out a couple here to focus on while we have a few minutes left. So please download the document and take a look at those. One of the first takeaways we have is digital banking providers have to prioritize solving real human problems by combining user-centered design with data-driven technologies. We talked a lot about both today. Peter, love to have you, Peter, on talk about that. Kick us off on that takeaway. Why that's so important.
Yeah. Enhancing, let's say, customer experience, leveraging data. This is again all about the personalization topic that was also, I think, discussed earlier, especially in banking. This personalization, financial, using financial data to actually also provide tailored advice to a customer. These are still things that are, I think that there's a lot to gain. There's still many banks are not using the data that they have from me. If you have somebody's personal data, there's so much information that you can see from transactional data that allows a bank to sell relevant products. So I'm not saying that you should push products, but relevant products. It's all about bringing relevant services to customers, and data is the key enabler for that. AI on top, it can help, of course, analyze the data with its specific personalization. The example that I also discussed earlier about the experience relativity, customer demand is really there and increasing. I think this is definitely an important area for banks to continuously develop and also expand their services using the technology, because the technology is for sure already out there. It is all about finding the right value proposition, making sure that you implement it well, and that you have access to the data that supports bringing those services also to your customers.
Customer experience, Carter. I imagine that is one of your passions as well.
It is, yeah, and so you can probably see from my reaction. So it is absolutely a priority in the banking subvertical, with modernization at the very core. I mean, we find that market research shows that customer habits have been changing over the last decade, with customers expecting frictionless and instant access to their banking needs. Banking customers have prioritized digital self-service via mobile and web over branch or phone banking. And with COVID-19, it only accelerated this trend. And although digital channels are rising in importance, the ability to converge channels is also very important, in some cases more important. And as it lets customers engage through their preferred channel without the bank or agent losing context of the interaction. And beyond frictionless service, customers now expect their banks to understand their very specific situation and provide them with personalized offers at their point of need. And this was demonstrated in a recent study, which I found really interesting, highlighted about how 50% of customers would buy a product from their bank through a personalized offer. And that same study estimated that banks that have focused on hyper-personalized approaches could derive $300 million in revenue growth for every $100 billion in assets. I know we're short on time, but one more comment. Banks are adopting really 3 approaches to deliver customer experience, customer service, and each one builds on the next. They are digital customer engagement and service. The second, contextualized or embedded finance. And then the third is hyper-personalized banking. All very, very powerful.
Very good. Well, we are almost at the top of our, I apologize, EK, because there's another 3 or 4 of those in the 5 takeaways we'd love to jump to. So, Amanda, if you would go ahead and close this out, I want to thank AWS and Hexaware and our panelists for joining us today, and especially you, our audience, for being part of this. Some great questions that helped shape our conversation. So we appreciate you being with us. Amanda?
Yeah, absolutely. This was a great topic. I'm in the former banking world and loans and insurance. So this was something that I was paying more attention to because I've been out of that industry for probably 14 years now or something like that. But very fascinating. It was wonderful learning today. So thank you to all of our speakers. Just a few things before we close out. We please invite you to take our survey. You can do this by finding it under the handout section. There's a link available there. It takes only 1 minute, and your input is highly invaluable to us, helps us continue to create great programs like these. As another reminder, this session will be available on demand, and we will email you a link to your inbox shortly after we conclude today's live session. And again, I want to thank all of our panels today. This was a highly insightful conversation, so thank you so much for joining us. And most of all, we want to thank all of you for joining us today as well. And thank you for joining this TechStrong learning experience. Have a great rest of your day.
Take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.